The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Hello and welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I certainly did. I hope you enjoyed these cheat days, this cheat week, this cheat month of December. You've probably been overdoing it with the food and the drink for the whole month, but it's okay. You're allowed to enjoy this time and then just go again in January. Some of you might do dry January. Some of you might start working on your goals. Of course, you've got New Year's resolutions, but it's always good to set new goals, short term and long term. We talk a lot about this on these podcast episodes with former world and Olympic champions. They're always setting their goals, both short and long term. So it's something you need to consider as well, and see how you can get on in 2017. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic year for you. And it's going to be a great year for The Best in the World with Richard Parr. We've got a whole host of guests already lined up for you. And one of our New Year's resolutions on the show will be to get more winter sports world and Olympic champions. Really, on the show so far, we've only had Gretchen Bleiler, the former 4 times X Games champion, the former world Superpipe champion. She's been on the show before, but until today we've not had any other winter sports stars. Well, that stops now. For our last show of 2016, I'm delighted that we have Eve Muirhead on the programme. She is the skipper of the Great Britain women's curling team. She's a former world champion working towards the next Olympic Games in South Korea to try and get a gold medal. And it's a really interesting chat. We actually spoke a few weeks ago leading up to the European Championships, which were in her home country of Scotland. And it was great to get that insight of just leading up to a major championship, the different things that she has to do, rather than saying in the regular weeks of training. They ended up going on to win a bronze medal on home soil. They took bronze after a shock defeat in the semi-finals, but it's still a bronze medal on the way towards the South Korea Games in 2018. I'm sure this year will be another fantastic year for Eve and her team to prepare. And it's a great chat. We talk a whole range of topics as well as training. We talk about food and drink. She loves her coffee, but she's a coeliac, so we talk about being gluten-free on the show. We talk about how she copes with stress, the importance of family. It's all included in this fantastic episode with Eve Muirhead, so please listen into it. Just before we get to the interview with Eve, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Sportacino. Sportacino is the brand new sports breakfast show that I do on Facebook Live, Periscope, and on YouTube. It's live every single weekday morning from 8 GMT. We cover a lot of things like we do on The Best in the World, but so much more. We react to all of the results of all the different sports around the world. We also look ahead to all of the sports actions. We also have games and competitions and really, really good guests. It's called Sportacino. Check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/Sportacino. I'd really appreciate it if you went and liked that page. They are today's sponsor. All right, let's get to it. Let's get to my interview with Eve Muirhead.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Eve Muirhead, world curling champion, welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr. So great to have you on the show. Now, what we like to do on the show is we like to find out the processes and the regimes of the world and Olympic champions. So it's the middle of the afternoon now. Why don't you tell us how your day has gone so far so we get an idea of a typical day in your life?
Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's exciting to kind of explain to people what we do day in, day out, because I guess the sport of curling, a lot of people don't really know what goes into it behind the scenes. So I guess starting with, as you say, with a typical day gives a good kind of picture of what we get up to. So for today, for instance, my alarm went off at 10 to 6 this morning. Frosty, cold, dark, not very nice. Had some breakfast, then headed into the gym for the back of 7. Did a kind of high interval CrossFit session. Straight after that, came back, quickly got showered, and then headed off for a team on ice practice session, which is in a place called Perth, just north of Stirling here, so about 30 minutes drive. So did that. That was about 2 hours. Drove back, just literally had a bite of lunch now, and now I'm speaking to yourself. So far been busy, and it's not finished just yet.
So yeah, what else is to come today?
Well, later on this afternoon, I'm going to go back in and do a bit of a kind of recovery session, probably just a little bit of spin off, and just some kind of light weights and things, just to kind of keep moving. Maybe do a little bit of core, because that's important. If we didn't have the Europeans coming up at the end of this week, I probably would go back on ice and do an individual session. But with the major championships coming up, I always try and not cram everything in the week before, because I guess that's not ideal. So I feel like individually as a player, I'm in quite a good place just now, the way I'm throwing the stones. So I don't want to overdo that. So I should get back here kind of the back of 5, which is pretty good, and start to pack. As I say, we've got Europeans coming up next week.
Exciting. So yeah, as you say, when you head in towards a championship, it's a lot more about rest and recovery and thinking about technique rather than kind of pushing yourself. Is that right?
A little bit, yes and no. I think what we've kind of developed, the way we do our off-ice training in the gym, a lot of sports kind of tailor towards major championships, but for us, we kind of build up towards them, because if you kind of tailor back, by the time you get to the end of the week in a curling tournament, you're pretty fatigued. And if we can kind of build up to a major championships, and then you're kind of up there high, and then you kind of maintain that for the whole duration of the championships, we found that makes it slightly better for ourselves. But when it comes to, I guess, on ice stuff, you don't want to be doing a lot of technical changes, major changes, but just kind of little tweaks here and there help. But as I say, the last thing that you want to do really is cram it all in the week before.
And in this week before, is the diet the same?
I would say so, yes. I think for us, obviously it's not a kind of sport that you need to hit a certain weight category for, so that's not essential. But yes, I think it's essential that you try and keep and maintain much of your kind of daily routines as possible, especially when it comes to your eating patterns. And for me as a player, like, I always find it really hard to maintain my weight when it comes to major championships, just through the whole stress and everything like that, because it's not easy, and I guess it's not easy in the body either. But yeah, you just try and keep it as similar as you can. Like, as a team, we're all pretty good when it comes to knowing what to eat at what times, and really just getting the timing right for our meals.
So how often is that, and what are the type of foods you're eating then?
Well, I think, like, if during a competitive week, let's say we've got a game, we always try and eat about, I think, 3 hours before a game is a good time for us. Like, as me being the skip, it's not as essential to let my food go down. But if I was like one of the sweepers, you're sweeping pretty intensely for 2.5, 3 hours. Like, the last thing you want to do is be tasting your lunch halfway through a game. So we always try and eat three hours before. And I guess it's just making sure you get a good balance of the food you have as well, something that's going to give you plenty of energy. And as well, it's very important that we make sure and refuel straight after a game as well.
And can you eat anything sometimes, or do you always have to stay to that strict diet, or are you allowed a cheat day?
Yeah, like, we're pretty flexible. Like, for me, I've got a coeliac, so my diet's pretty stricted when it comes to what I can eat, when it comes to obviously wheat and things. But that nowadays isn't much of a problem. And yeah, for sure, we do have treats, yes, within moderation, I guess. But it's not super strict. Like, I think, as I say, it's being sensible and knowing and kind of fueling your body. Each individual has different needs and what food to take on board, and knowing what agrees with them, what doesn't agree with them, what they like as they're obviously like their kind of treat as well. And but the majority of the time, I would say we're pretty good, and I am a healthy eater, and I am pretty sensible when it comes to food.
For those that don't know, could you just explain what a coeliac is and how you were diagnosed with that?
Yeah, well, coeliac is gluten. Like, I cannot have gluten. So that's the main kind of the foods are, I guess, bread, pasta, are the main sources. So I've got to look at getting my carbohydrates from a different source, and obviously that's when you have lots of potatoes, rice, like But as I say, there's so many different options out there nowadays to accommodate, which is great. So I got diagnosed. It wasn't long before the Sochi Winter Olympics, and like I knew something wasn't right, but I'm just really glad that they managed to figure out what was wrong. And let me tell you, like the difference knowing is night and day. Like really, the difference in myself, the energy levels, are so much better, and I feel so much better.
Yeah, I went gluten-free just from the advice of my personal trainer a few months ago. I'm not a coeliac, and I can eat wheat, and on occasion I do, but the difference in the energy levels I found in the gym, just at my pitiful average person level, is amazing. So it must be incredible the kind of benefits it must give a top athlete like you.
Yeah, like it does, for sure. Like still I would love to be able to pay somebody or something to be normal and not have this problem, but there's nothing I can do about it. And it's just making sure and keeping on top of it. And especially when you're away, you've got to be pretty quick at picking up if you're going to have anything or anything, because obviously it makes me pretty ill. So but yeah, as I say, like the difference is great. So much energy, and yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the difference.
Do you take any food around the world with you, just in case where you might be going can't look after you and they can't give you what you need?
Yeah, I do. I always take my own oats, my own porridge oats. I always buy gluten-free ones here at home. So I always take them with me, so I know that they are obviously gluten-free and they're good to have. I have them for breakfast most mornings, every morning actually. So and I also take a lot of bars, a lot of protein bars away with me as well. I'm lucky enough to have Nutrimino as one of my sponsors, so I stock up on them, and they're a vital part of my my energy as well, and they're good there to have as a backup because they're good.
Fantastic. Yeah, I start my day with Nairn's gluten-free porridge, so that's pretty good as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your first interest in curling. Where did that all begin?
Well, my dad, he was a high-class curler and at a high level, and he played at many world championships. He actually played at Olympic Games when it was a demonstration sport. So really from family. When I was younger, like my mum used to take me and my brothers along to support my dad. And really from a young age, we just really wanted to go on and try it and give it a shot. And I remember the first time my dad did take me and my brothers on, and it was exciting. Like if you're a young kid and you get the chance to slide around on ice and throw stones up and down, battering them off each other, you're going to do it, aren't you? So that was where it really started, in a wee village called Pitlochry, just north of Perth.
And was there any pressure on you at all to take it up seriously, or did that love just come naturally after a while?
I think that's one thing I'm really lucky with my parents. Like my parents are not pushy one bit. And I'm a big believer in, like, you have to make your own choices. If you want to do it, you're going to do it. And if you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. And I think if you're pushed into something, that just doesn't help you as an athlete. And for me, as I say, I was lucky that my parents allowed me to make the choice. And it's a sport I love, and they back me up for everything I do. And it's great to have them there. And obviously, Dad being a player as well, his advice to me is always great, and yeah, so it's good that they're fully supportive with me.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Don't worry, more from Eve in just a moment, but I want to say that today's show is also brought to you by Audible. Audible is one of the leading suppliers of audiobooks in the world. They've got 180,000 titles to choose from. Wow, that's a lot of books to listen to. It's a product I personally use, and I would love for you to try out their service for free. They do it, yes, they offer you a free 30-day trial, and that includes one free download. So any book you want to listen to that they have on Audible, you can just download and listen to for free. If you like their service, then please continue. Like I say, it's a product I personally use. To get this free service, just go to audibletrial.com audibletrial.com/best. That's audibletrial.com/best. They are the sponsors of this show, and by helping yourself, you'll also be helping me and the rest of the Best in the World team. All right, let's get back to the chat with Eve Muirhead.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Now, when I look at your accomplishments as a young player, it's just glittered with gold, from the Scottish Women's Curling Championships to the World Junior Curling Championships, 4-time champion. Did you ever become overconfident in those early years?
No, I don't think so. And I think it was really important that I didn't. I worked really hard for those medals, and I knew every year it was getting tougher and tougher. I knew every year countries were getting closer to me. But for those that know me, like, I am super competitive. I'm really competitive, and if I don't like anything but winning and being the best. And if I know someone's getting better or teams are developing different ideas, like, I'll go and train super hard to beat them and be better than them. So, as I said, it was really important that I didn't get complacent back in the day. But it's not just myself. Like, I had a great team behind me, a great team of 3 girls. Which kind of varied over the years. Obviously, juniors, that you've got to look at the age as well. So we pulled together well as a team, and as I say, worked really, really hard to get those accomplishments.
And let's talk about the 2013 Riga World Championships. That's when you won gold. You know, I believe you were at the 2010 Championships as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I was at the
and got silver. So
yeah.
What were the differences? What were the changes you made in those 3 years?
Well, I think if you look at 2010 World Championships, that was just off the back of the Vancouver Olympics. And like, we went into the Vancouver Olympics as medal hopefuls, and I think we came away 6th, which obviously wasn't great. And I look back and I think in a way it was a little bit of a kind of blessing in disguise. Like, we went there with a lot of pressure on our backs to perform, and we just didn't. So straight after that we had the World Championships, and we just kind of relaxed. I think we relaxed, and there was a lot of pressure brought off our shoulders, and we performed great. I remember the Worlds was out in Canada in Swift Current, and as you said, we came away with the silver medal. And then from then on, looking at how we developed to becoming the world champions in 2013, and then getting the bronze medal in Sochi 2014 at the Olympics, it was probably a mixture of a lot of things. I think the biggest change for me was getting the chance to go down to London 2012 to the Olympics. I remember going down there and I was watching all these athletes on top of the podium, getting the gold medals for Team GB, and that's what I wanted. Like, it was a kind of kick up the butt I needed to work harder, train harder, practice harder, and that's exactly what I did. So leading into the Worlds in 2013, like, we knew we had a good chance, and it was great. Like, we were the best team there all week. We played fantastic, and it was really a kind of boost for us knowing that we were the best team in the world. And I guess that helped our confidence going into the Olympics as well in 2014.
Was there any pressure going into those games in 2014 being the world champions?
Huge. There was masses of pressure. You're going in there ranked number 1. You've got all the media in your back. You're ranked number 1. They're expecting you to get that gold medal. And there was a lot of pressure. But I think as a team, what we do well is we thrive under pressure. And I think, like me as a player, I seem to perform better under pressure. And when you have that there, knowing that the kind of whole nation's behind you, as that gold medal hope, it makes it a little bit more exciting. And I guess it makes you perform better too, because knowing that you really can't slip up.
Now, obviously, the quality of the players in your team is important, but also how important is it that you gel and you get on well? Like, have you seen a correlation of times where you've had a team and it's not just been the right camaraderie and you haven't performed well, to when you do have that solid friendship, so to speak, and then you've performed well? Or is it just more, you're all professionals, you know what you're doing, and it just didn't go right that day?
Well, I think our team's a little bit of both. Like in our team, I would say we're four best friends as well as four work colleagues, which I guess makes it tough. But what we need to do as a team, and what we've realised is that we need to know when you're in friendship mode and when you're in work mode, and it's knowing when to switch the buttons from each. Because at the end of the day, we are work colleagues, and it's different to being friends. So it's so important that you get on as a team of four. And I think being part of several teams in the past, maybe when one or two people just don't seem to fit or just don't seem to gel within the team, it does impact the whole team. So I think it's crucial that, as I say, that you get on, you all respect each other and respect them in the way that knowing what they want to do as a player. Does that make sense? So I think it's important to basically know each other inside out, because I guess when you're away competing, you fly away together, you stay in the same hotels together, you eat together, you play together, you're with each other 24/7. So it's essential you get on, but it's also essential knowing when you can switch off from that and have some of your own time.
Yeah, it must feel like a bubble at times. And how do you then, when you're around these people all the time, do you just go away and have a walk, or do you just go to your room? Because sometimes you just need your own personal space, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And I think, like as a team, we know that people need that. And for me, it's difficult. Like I find it pretty hard to switch off, especially when I'm away competing. So I tend to like to keep busy. So even if it's, I don't know, lately I've been starting doing a bit of online Christmas shopping and just really doing something to take my mind off it. Like I'll still do quite a bit of training when I'm away. So even if it means going to the gym and putting in some music for half an hour and doing some stretching and doing some recovery work, there's lots of different things. Going shopping's another one. Or for me, I'm a bit of a coffee addict. So you often find me in the closest Starbucks or coffee shop.
What is it about the coffee shops? Is it just, because I find the same, and I think a lot of people do. They just kind of like the ambience. They kind of like being around people, not necessarily talking to people, just kind of being around them. Do you specifically look for certain coffee shops, or is it just whatever's the nearest?
I do like a Starbucks, and I think in Canada Starbucks are pretty popular, so you tend to come across them. Obviously Tim Hortons out there as well, and every corner you find one of them. But really, I guess, like as I say, Starbucks is probably the main one. Like I do like a Americano misto every now and then. So yeah, like as I say, coffees for me is something that I like just to chill out, and people know if I haven't had my coffee, put it that way.
That's when the camaraderie between the team isn't quite so great, when Eve hasn't had her coffee. So you mentioned music. What are you normally listening to on your playlist? Do you have any particular music which really will gear you up for a big competition?
Nothing in particular. Like I'm like the kind of usual chart. I like all the new songs coming out. There's a lot of nice, good new songs just now. So it's really just the UK chart I like to listen to. All the kind of usual things. Nothing that really is any different to anything. I'm not into anything like you'd think, like heavy metal, opera, nothing like that. Just your usual.
And one thing I did read, I don't know if it's right, but you're an accomplished bagpiper as well. Is that right?
Yes, I do play the bagpipes, or I did play the bagpipes. I still obviously can play them, but I just haven't played them as much lately because just been so busy. But yeah, for several years, like I was a member of the pipe band. I've travelled a lot around the world, really competing. Did a lot of solo competing, so I still can play. I'm usually a cheap gig for friends' weddings and things.
And you mentioned being ultra competitive. Now, when you're doing curling and you're doing bagpiping and things like that, what are the other things you were good at growing up? And also, what are the games and things people should avoid to play you now because you take a little bit too seriously?
Well, when I was growing up, I also play a lot of golf as well. Golf was a sport that I had to make the decision whether to golf or curl. And years ago, it was fine because I could golf in the summer and curl in the winter. But when curling becomes your full-time job, there's no way you can do that. So right now, I love being able to play just at a kind of social level and get it round in a decent score. Any sport really, like I'm super sporty, so I love to be able to play as many different sports as I can and enjoy that as well.
Now, I wanted to ask, with 2 years to the next Olympics in 2018 in South Korea, where you think the team is right now, but I'm guessing you'll have a better indication of that after the European Championships, am I right?
Yes, I think after the European Championships, we'll kind of have a rough idea where we stand, but as a team I know we're pretty close to being where we want to be. Obviously the Europeans is the event that kind of sets your marker down for the worlds and stuff, and then moving on from that, you move on to the. Sorry, I'm just getting a delivery.
No worries. It's probably part of that Christmas shopping you were telling me about.
What it actually is. Sorry. But yeah, so the important thing this season is the Europeans, which is a qualifier for the World Championships, and the World Championships, which is a qualifier for the Olympic Games. So every tournament in the next few months is as important as each other. So really looking forward to it, but I guess you can't really take your foot off the gas pedal at all.
So let's just talk about the build up to a big day like that. Now, we talked about a typical training day, but what would you do on a match day? Is there any superstitions you have? Do you do any visualization skills? Do you eat any differently? What differs from, say, a training day compared to a match day?
Yeah, like I definitely don't do anything like out of the bubble, if you know what I mean. Like I don't have a lot of superstitions or anything like that. And I guess the difference between a match day and a game day is I guess a little bit of your focus, because I guess training, like, you can have a laugh with the rest of your team, you can experiment different things, and when it comes to kind of game day, you get no second chances, do you? There's no mulligans out there. So there's not an awful lot that differs. It's just making sure that you're prepared in every way possible when it comes to a big match. As we said before, like, you're fueled up for it, you're hydrated for it. But I guess training is very similar too, so there isn't actually a huge difference.
You're obviously going for the Olympics, you know, like you said, European Champions, World Championships. Are you someone who goal sets even smaller than that? Do you set a goal for a day or for a week or for a month, or do you just look ahead to these key points?
I think a little bit of both. I think I'm all like, whenever I threw that last stone in Sochi at the Olympics, you kind of have the next Olympics in the back of your head. And I think that's my overall big goal, yes. But as you say, I think it's important that you set smaller goals as well. And as a team, like, we sat down at the start of the season and kind of traffic lighted our schedule, like what's semi-important, what's important, and what is very important. And in an ideal world, you would love to be able to peak at the very important events, but if anyone as a sports person knows how to work out when you peak, I'd love to know, because it's hard being able to peak at the right time. But so our goals are set out a little bit like that, and we know when we can really build up to an event and experiment different things if it's not as important. But overall, I think we do have our main goals, but they're probably set out more kind of season-like.
Yeah, you say as soon as that last stone goes, you look into the next Olympics. Is that exhausting, that thought that you've got another 4 years of really hard work, or is it exhilarating? Is it exciting?
It's exciting, I think. I just can't believe how quick it's come round. You think when we were in Sochi, like, oh, another 4 years. But really, God, it's absolutely flown by. And now that Rio's out the way, it's kind of all lights in the Winter Olympics. And then before we know it, it's going to be a year February, and it's going to be us competing. So it's exciting. It's so soon, but as I say, like, time has absolutely flown by.
And I can't believe how quick this interview has gone with you, Eve. Eve, just before we go, why don't you tell us how we can follow you on social media and anything else you'd like to promote just before we go, so we can continue to follow your journey and continue to follow your success?
Yeah, that would be great. My Twitter handle is at Eve Muirhead, all lowercase. So I always like to post different things of what I'm getting up to, and you'll see at major championships how we're getting on, and I guess our journey going towards the Olympics in Korea 2018.
Well, I wish you all the best at the European Championships and then the Worlds and then the Olympics. I'm sure there's great success ahead. Eve Muirhead, thank you for being on the show and thank you for being the best in the world.
Thank you very much.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Thanks again to Eve for being on the show. Apologies for the bit of the echoey noise in my part of the interview. I'll be honest, where I normally record it in the studio, that was out of bounds just at the time that we were supposed to do this call. Really unfortunate. I rushed into another room and it had to be like the world's most echoey room. So apologies for that, but the most important thing is we've learnt really good knowledge from Eve. So thanks again to her for being on this week's Best in the World. So next week will be 2017. I hope you have a fantastic New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and are ready to learn from the very best in sports. World champions, Olympic champions, former world number ones and world record holders. We will have them every single Wednesday on the Best in the World with Richard Parr. If you'd like to learn more about me, you can follow me on Twitter at Richard_Parr. That's the same on Instagram as well. Like the Facebook page, that's Best in the World with Richard Parr. And you can also go and listen to the whole catalogue back at richardparr.net and on the iTunes page. And if you get a moment, please give us a rating and review. That would really mean a lot to us. All right, set those goals. Enjoy your new year, and I'll speak to you in 2017. Goodbye.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.